So guys, let's talk about Sweden for a second. We've experienced during or since the refugee crisis a lot of tragedy in Europe, in the Middle East, and basically, I guess, in the States as well. But I want to talk about Sweden today. So, you guys know that Sweden used to be a white country. It used to be a safe, orderly, successful, and very productive country. The Guardian declared Sweden as the most successful society the world has ever known. Well, of course, that was 10 years ago. And the problems Sweden is facing today had only just started. Today, Sweden is no longer a white country. And by a white country, I mean that the demographics has changed drastically on the ethnic front. No one really truly knows how many non-whites or non-Swedes actually live in our country today, because the registers and the statistics based on ethnicity are simply illegal. But most level-headed people estimate that the non-white population is to be estimated between 17 and 25%, and it's rising every day. In the three biggest cities, Stockholm, Gothenburg, and Malmö, the non-white population exceeds 40%, and in Malmö it's beyond 60%. The consequence of this has been disastrous. Malmö is basically a war zone of ethnic gangs, rape, and murder. Also, the school standards are dropping drastically as non-white students drive the whites out, and simply 9 out of 10 people fail elementary school. It's horrible. It's just simply disastrous. So in 1963, Sweden, which had only a population over 7 million, had 8 murders in the whole year. Only 8 murders. And that's the lowest murder rate of any region with that population in human history. Only countries such as Iceland, with only about 320,000 people, and the Faroe Islands, with 40,000 people, had similar numbers. But that's nothing compared to 7 million. So today, only 50 years later, Sweden has hundreds of murders every year, and more than 80% of which are committed by non-whites. The birth rates are far below the replacement level for the non-whites, since the Swedish or the average Swede doesn't produce as many children compared to the non-whites. And ethnic Swedes have on at least 2 occasions have been evicted from their homes to allow the housing for non-white refugees. Can you believe that? I mean, to be kicked out of your home, or to be forced to sell a property to allow refugees to live in what used to be yours. And you can't even argue with it. That's the way to go. The Migration Authority are actively buying up castles, historical buildings, and even mansions to house non-whites. And the Nordic welfare state under which Sweden governed is crumbling under its growing non-white burden. So let's ask, how did all this happen? And what went wrong? And where did it start? Well, it all began in 1964 when the Jewish Holocaust survivor David Schwartz published an article in in one of Sweden's daily newspapers, DN, in which he criticized the so-called foreigner problem and argued for a more tolerant and open border policy. And David Schwartz became a good friend and advisor of Sweden's Prime Minister Olof Palme, and was the single most important influence on the 1973 policy change in which Sweden, according to law, was to become a multicultural society. That same year, Schwartz had published another pro-immigration book or study which served as the groundwork for the policy change, which is kinda ludicrous. Sweden has about 5 largest newspapers, which are owned by 3 media conglomerates, which are operated as family business. Bonnier. Bonnier is a Jewish family, and they own DN, Expressen, Sydsvenska Dagbladet, GT, Dagens Industri, and has a virtual monopoly on the publishing industry. Secondly, which is Hjörne family, or the Hjörne family, which is a Jewish family owning nearly all local newspapers in the country. And thirdly, the Norwegian media conglomerate Schibsted, which is in turn owned and financed by the Jewish bank Goldman Sachs. Sweden's largest TV network is the state-owned by SVT, which is supported by taxpayer money and operates on a objective basis. But it actually is just a part of the same liberal, anti-white establishment like the rest of the Swedish media. So Sweden's second largest TV network is TV4, owned by the previously mentioned Jewish media family Bonnier, with TV4's head executive being the Jewish Jan Sherman. Sweden's largest privately owned surveillance and anti-racism publication is known as Expo, founded by a number of communists and left-wing extremists, one of which is Jewish media personality and TV host Robert Aschberg, whose grandfather was actually a Jewish Swedish banker who financed the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia and was subsequently rewarded with loot from Russian churches when the Jews plundered them all after banning religion. So here we are in 2017 with a productive, beautiful white country which has been ruined by Jewish mobsters and being completely overrun by refugees. So, how do you think the Swedish population's reaction is to this racial and national catastrophe? Are they organizing on a racial basis to violently take down the government? Are they urging their fellow countrymen to instigate a civil war? Are they murdering non-whites and selectively assassinating leftish politicians to lay the ground for a revolution? Are they bombing media headquarters and poisoning the water supply to the larger cities? No. They're simply moving further and further away from the growing non-white population. And then they have the audacity to vote for the Feminist Party in the European elections, giving them 1 seat to represent my country. A party that wants to abolish the nation state and its borders, remove the military, and to make racial and gender quotas required by law in every facet of human life. I'm old enough to have lived in this country when it was still white. I'm old enough to have witnessed what it's become, and I'm also old enough to know that there is no hope left for Sweden. The Sweden of my youth is gone, and it's never coming back.